Hello everyone and welcome to my BTG CBS update channel. Leslie sat across from Ted in the cozy confines of his living room, the twinkling lights from his half-decorated Christmas tree casting flickering shadows on the walls. She hesitated for a moment, twisting the hem of her sweater in her hands, before finally letting the words spill out. Ted, I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know. It's about Vernon. Ted leaned forward, his brow furrowing in confusion. Vernon? What about him? He's been like a rock for all of us. Leslie took a deep breath, her voice dropping to a whisper. He's been cheating on Anita. I've seen it with my own eyes, messages, late nights that don't add up. It's been going on for months. Ted's face drained of color, his eyes widening in disbelief. No, that can't be right. Vernon Dupree? The man who's practically a saint in this town? Incomparable, that's what everyone calls him. How could he do that to Anita? He shook his head vigorously, as if trying to dislodge the information. I need proof, Leslie. Something concrete. I can't just accept this. It's going to destroy her if it's true. Leslie nodded solemnly, pulling out her phone to show him a screenshot she'd managed to capture. I hate being the messenger, but here it is. Look at the timestamps, the way he talks to her. It's not just a misunderstanding. Ted stared at the screen, his jaw tightening as the reality sank in. This is going to blow everything apart. Anita doesn't deserve this, not now, not ever. Meanwhile, across town in the quiet elegance of the Dupree home, Anita sat alone in her bedroom, staring at the doctor's report clutched in her trembling hands. The diagnosis had come like a thunderclap, shattering the fragile normalcy she'd been clinging to. Cancer. The word echoed in her mind, cold and unrelenting, as tears blurred the lines on the page. She folded the paper carefully, tucking it into her nightstand drawer as if hiding it could make it less real. How could this be happening now, during what was supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year? The house was filled with the scent of pine from the tree downstairs, but up here the air felt thick with isolation. Anita hadn't told anyone yet. Not Vernon, not the kids, not even her closest friends. She was still carrying this burden alone, processing the devastating information in silence, hoping that her family would slowly start to notice the subtle changes, the fatigue that lingered a little too long, the forced smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't want pity or panic. She just wanted time to wrap her head around it before the world came crashing in. Wiping her eyes, she stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the snow-dusted lawns of Fairmont Crest. The head of the Dupree family had always been the pillar, the one who held everything together. Now she wondered how long she could keep standing before the cracks showed. The festive spirit tried to assert itself that evening as two competing tree-trimming parties unfolded simultaneously, dividing the families in a light-hearted rivalry that felt like a brief escape from the heavier clouds gathering overhead. Danny and Martin had thrown open their doors, inviting one half of the neighborhood to their home where boxes of ornaments spilled across the living room floor. Come on, everyone. Let's make this the most beautiful tree Fairmont Crest has ever seen, Danny called out, laughing as she handed out strings of lights and delicate glass baubles. Martin grinned beside her, hoisting a star to the top with exaggerated flair. No holding back, we're going all out this year. Their guests dove in with enthusiasm, sharing stories and hot cocoa while carefully placing each decoration, determined to outshine the competition. Just down the street, the other group gathered at a neighbor's house, equally committed to crafting a masterpiece. Laughter echoed as families debated the perfect placement of tinsel and ribbons, the air filled with the competitive yet joyful energy of the season. No one wanted to admit defeat, and for a few hours, the drama took a back seat to the simple pleasure of creating something beautiful together. Yet, even amid the cheer, glances were exchanged, whispers about Anita's quiet demeanor, questions about Vernon's absences, hinting that the holiday sparkle couldn't fully mask the underlying tensions. It had been far too long since Regina's face had graced the screens, and her return brought a wave of emotion that tugged at the heartstrings. June stepped into Orphe Jean's, the familiar diner that held so many memories, and there she was, her sister Regina, played with raw intensity by Jacinti Blankenship, sitting in a booth with a cup of coffee steaming in front of her. The two women locked eyes, and for a moment time stood still. June, Regina said softly, standing up with a tentative smile. I wasn't sure you'd come. June crossed the room quickly, pulling her sister into a hug that lingered longer than either expected. Of course I came. After everything we've been through, how could I not? They sat down together, the clatter of the diner fading into the background as they revisited the past. The last time they'd been face to face like this was during the chaos surrounding that old photo Naomi and Jacob had puzzled over. The one with the 2 children June had treasured in secret. Back then, Regina had carried years of resentment, blaming June for giving up those children without a fight. You just walked away, Regina had accused tearfully. But the truth had emerged slowly. June hadn't abandoned them. She placed them for adoption because as a young woman struggling alone, she knew she couldn't provide the life they deserved, the stability, the love, the opportunities. I did it for them, June had explained, her voice breaking. It broke my heart, but it was the right thing. With that revelation, the walls between the sisters had crumbled. Now, in this reunion there were no accusations, only healing. They talked for hours, sharing laughs over childhood memories and quiet tears over the years lost. I'm so glad we're here now, Regina whispered, squeezing June's hand. No more blame. Just us. The moment was filled with a happiness that felt earned, a bright spot in the week's unfolding turmoil. But not all relationships were finding their way back to harmony. Naomi paced the kitchen of their home, her face flushed with anger as Jacob stood by the counter, arms crossed defensively. How could you, Jacob? After everything we've been through, she snapped, her voice rising. Jacob sighed, running a hand through his hair. Naomi, listen to me. It's not that simple. She whirled to face him, eyes blazing. It never is with you, is it? You always choose the rules over us, over family. The fury in her words carried the weight of old wounds, disappointing after the arduous journey they'd taken to rebuild their connection. It hadn't been that long since they'd fallen out hard over the question of parenthood, thrown into chaos by a false positive pregnancy test that had forced them to confront their deepest fears and desires. They clawed their way back, recommitting to each other with promises of honesty and support. Yet here they were again on the brink. Most times Naomi's rage stemmed from Jacob's unwavering commitment to upholding the law, prioritizing his duty as an officer over the fierce loyalty the Duprees demanded. Is that it again? She demanded, her voice trembling. You're putting your badge before blood? Jacob stepped closer, his expression pained. I have to do what's right, Naomi. Even if it hurts. Especially if it involves the family. She shook her head, turning away to hide the tears welling up. We just got back to ourselves. Don't throw it away now. The tension hung thick between them, a stark contrast to the holiday cheer outside, leaving viewers wondering if this rift would widen, or if they'd find common ground before Christmas arrived. As the evening wound down, Anita found herself back in her bedroom, the house quiet now that the tree-trimming festivities had ended. She pulled out the doctor's report once more, tracing the words with her finger as if they might change if she stared long enough. The cheating rumors about Vernon, whispers she'd overheard but pushed aside, now mingled with her own secret, creating a storm of doubt and pain. How much more could one person bear? Downstairs, the tree stood proudly, adorned with lights and memories, but it felt hollow to her. She thought of her children, of the family gatherings planned for the week ahead, and steeled herself to keep smiling a little longer. Ted, still reeling from Leslie's revelation, picked up his phone several times that night, debating whether to call Vernon or Anita. The proof on his screen burned in his mind, the messages that painted a picture of betrayal he couldn't unsee. Incomparable Vernon Dupree, he muttered to himself, shaking his head. The man who'd mentored so many, who'd built an empire on integrity, reduced to this. Ted finally set the phone down, unresolved, knowing that confronting it too soon could shatter everything. At Danny and Martin's, the winning tree sparkled triumphantly, though the rivalry had ended in good-natured ties and shared desserts. Laughter lingered as guests departed, but Danny caught Martin's eye with a knowing look. Something's off with Anita, she said quietly. Have you noticed? He nodded. Yeah. And Vernon? He's been distant. They agreed to keep an eye out, the joy of the evening tempered by concern. June and Regina parted with promises to meet again soon, perhaps even for Christmas dinner. The reunion had mended old fractures, filling June with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Driving home, she smiled through tears, grateful for second chances. Naomi and Jacob's argument simmered into an uneasy truce, both retreating to separate rooms. "We'll talk tomorrow," Jacob called softly down the hall. Naomi didn't respond, but in the silence, she wondered if tomorrow would bring clarity or more fury. The short week stretched ahead, Christmas lights twinkling against the gathering storms of secrets and diagnoses, betrayals and reconciliations. Fairmont Crest was never short on drama, and this holiday season promised to be a doozy indeed, with hearts breaking and mending in equal measure under the weight of the festive facade.